Well, I graduated that year in May, and between May and September,
Which year was this?
I had like literally four jobs because I kept getting the jobs, but the places when I got there and worked there, the places were sort of dingy and the work was terrible. And I thought to myself, I didn't go to 4 years of college to work at places like this doing terrible work. So I would quit. As I said, my first job lasted about 3 weeks, my second job a month, my third job literally 2 weeks, and my last job 1 week, till I got an interview with Tom Carnesi, whom I knew. I loved his work, and I knew he worked with Herb Ballin in the same building, and I was fortunate to get that interview. And what Tom saw in me, I don't know. I guess he saw enthusiasm. I indicated to him that I, really want that job, and I would work literally my butt off to work there, and I would do anything. I'll sweep the floors, if I have to. He finally hired. Actually, he gave me a job to take home with me, to sort of testing me, and I worked all night on that job. And when the next morning he asked me how much time I spent on it, I said 2 hours. And of course, I'm meeting Herb and working with Herb. And it's a great studio in a brownstone. It was like leaving home to go to another home. I never felt like I was going to work. Everything. We did, as Tom's primary assistant, we worked on, he would sketch the stuff and I would execute it and finished art with ink and white paint, which I still do today. That's my method. And we were a full-service studio. We did typographics and lettering, coming up with ideas from corporate identity to designing packages to editorial design, film, you name it, we did it. I mean, I can't recall a project that was given to us that we refused because it's not our area. As a matter of fact, every problem that we were given, it was a challenge. We were asked to design a package. The challenge was had to design a package that's, again, uniquely different from the existing package. And that's how we made our reputation, by doing things differently in a uniquely creative way. A perfect example of that is the legs pantyhose package in the egg, legs, and that was a very successful package. I mean, the story of that is incredible. You want to hear something really happen? On the legs package, I recall her coming in one morning really agitated, and he said he had gotten a call from the printer who was printing the legs package in the middle of the night. And the printer said, I'm about to push the button and printing a zillion of these packages, but I just want to ask you a question. I notice here on the directions, it says how to open your legs. Do you really want to tell women how to open their legs? And Herbal Ballin dropped everything and said, stop the presses, don't push that button. So we checked with the client and his lawyers, because everybody missed it, because these copy goes through proofreaders and lawyers and legal teams and all that. And so we simply changed the wording, how to open your legs package. But that guy saved our asses, because this is like at the height of the women's movement. Can you imagine what would have happened to our studio if we had gone ahead with not made that correction? We would have been massacred. We had a wonderful client by the name of Ralph Ginsburg. When I was first hired, there were a few issues of Avant-Garde were already printed. So I was like in the middle. There were 14 issues. I was like, maybe when I was hired, I was on the 7th issue or 8th issue. And as Tom's assistant, again, I would be executing his sketches and Herb's ideas and so forth and so on. As a matter of fact, I remember seeing the very first issue of Avant-Garde. I was still in my last semester of school, and I see that issue on the newsstand, you know. And I looked at it, and I said, my God, you know, look at that masthead, that logo. I've never seen anything like it. And that's why I wanted to get a job at the Little Balance studio where Tom was working at. And so when I was hired, I was in heaven, work heaven. And what I did was, again, being an assistant, I was responsible for putting headlines together, you know, cutting characters, setting the type, cutting it character by character, fixing it to make it work the way Herb and Tom Carnesi wanted it to work, and so forth. And in the process of doing that, I learned tremendous amount about letter form and typography and graphic integrity and etc. Tom would get an assignment from Herb or even an outside client, and all they had to do was say, I want you to do this in Spencerian. Herb wouldn't sketch out a Spencerian because he knew what we were capable of doing. All he had to verbalize what he wanted. This is the title, or these are the words, and so forth and so on. Do it in Spencerian, and he might indicate to us where it's going to be laid out in a spread or something. And that was it. Then Tom would get busy sketching the configuration of characters in Spencerian. Pretty much the same way I showed in the workshop, exactly the same procedure. And he would do a final pencil sketch to the T, then he would hand it over to me, and I would have to execute it in ink. Ralph Ginsberg, the publisher, wanted to put out a special issue of Picasso's erotic engravings to give to subscribers as a giveaway if they subscribe to the regular magazine. And what I found interesting was that Picasso's engravings are on black and white, and Herb had made a decision how to get this black and white stuff so it looks rich and graphic, etc. And he came upon the solution of using color stock inside the magazine, where the engravings would be printed on a color stock. And then he made the decision of turning the titles of these engravings into avant-garde look, exactly like the masthead. And if you look at the masthead, it's very tightly spaced. As a matter of fact, there's a hairline of space between characters. I mean, that was unusual. That's what was amazed about me. And it was a bit of a job to work on because avant-garde worked as an avant-garde logo in setting headlines and copy to make it look like the masthead was a tremendous challenge. So we, within the span of 1 week, we developed the entire A to Z characters and numbers and punctuations. And Herb had given Tom some very rough sketches, again, knowing that his abilities. Tom would execute it in pencil, type, and then he would give it to me and one other assistant because we had 1 week to complete this, to execute, again, the same procedure of ink and white cleanup paint. And we did it within 1 week. It was a very nervous week because Ralph Ginsberg used to come to the office very early and literally look over our shoulder to see what progress we were making. And he was always in a hurry for the jobs that we worked on. But he was a wonderful client because he really allowed Herb to do whatever he wanted on his editorial projects. So Herb designed some, Tom sketched, Ayak and another assistant executed. And then in those days, once the alphabet was executed, we shot stat prints of individual characters. If a headline needed 3 E's, we would shoot 3 E's, 3 stats of the alphabet, and cut each character and paste up character by character. Truly hand work, not typesetting. And it was a laborious process, but the results were worth it. If you look at that Picasso issue, I mean, all avant-garde issues have become collector's items, but Picasso's issues especially is a beautiful magazine in itself. And Ralph Ginsberg was very happy with the results, and so was Herb. And again, all those, without exception, all those magazines were entered in trade shows and the Type Directors Club, and they were awards. As a matter of fact, if you look at Herb Luballen's book that Alan Peckle did, everything in that book was submitted to shows and trade publications, and winning awards left and right. The Serif Gothic, again, we were given lots of assignments on doing corporate identities and logos for companies. For example, in Serif Gothic, Herb Luballen had designed a sketch of a new style or typeface direction for a company, a French shirt company called Hector Chemise. And we did the usual presentation of maybe about a dozen such designs. And some of them were rejected. And I noticed, I believe, one of them that was rejected, I think, was Hector Chemise, if I'm not mistaken. But I looked at it, and I was waiting for Herb or Tom to give me another job, and it was a slow day. So I took that logo that was rejected, I believe, and I started developing caps characters, the rest of the caps characters in lowercase, and that's how it came about. And Herb saw me what I was doing, happened to pass by, and said, "That looks interesting. Go ahead, keep doing it. Continue, do the whole face." And that was it. We did 2 weights initially, and when he and Aaron Burns got together to form International Typeface Corporation, we did the additional weights, and that's how it came about. You know, most of the typefaces that the studio developed came from designing typography or logo types for companies. Avant-Garde is based on the Avant-Garde logo. Serif Gothic is based on a logo for this French shirt company, and so on. Well, Upper and Lowercase was a magazine started by, Herb Luballen and Aaron Burns. Aaron Burns was a wonderful man, gentleman, but a very astute businessman. Together they formed this company with photo lettering. Because they got into the business of designing exclusive typefaces as well as designing and distributing new typefaces. And they formed this company called ITC, International Typeface Corporation. But primarily, Herb was the designer behind the Upper and Lowercase magazine looks. Upper and Lowercase magazine was a vehicle merely to promote the new typefaces we were designing. And again, Herb and Tom would be designing these new typefaces. And then Ed Bengat from Photo Lettering also contributed typefaces. As a matter of fact, ITC Bengat, which is one of his best-known typeface, was done for during the Upper and Lowercase years. So it was basically a business venture, and Upper and Lowercase, a magazine to promote typeface. As a matter of fact, if you looked at the early magazines of Upper and Lowercase, we used nothing but ITC typefaces. You know, there were no Helveticas and Futura and other faces at all. And that's how that magazine was about. Actually, it was a magazine. It was in a newspaper format, in black and white. And those early issues are still the best designed Upper and Lowercase magazines, rather than the later ones with the color graphics and all of that. And the early ones are collectibles. I had been working for Tom and Herb for about 3 years. And as I said, I worked my butt off to prove my mettle, so to speak. And I started out by executing their stuff and comping up their material. And then whenever we worked on a corporate identity assignment, I was sneaking in my own designs, you know. And finally, I caught Herb's eye during the presentations. And he began to notice, I guess, my input or my talent, if you will. And I had rented a room in the same building and did my own thing, you know, while I was, Herb was my biggest client, so to speak, and yet I had outside clients. And after a couple of years of doing my own thing, I call it a studio, it was really me, a one-man studio. Herb asked me to come back as a partner, forming the Herb Luballen Associates. And of course, I jumped at the chance, you know, a partner with the Luca studio. Wow. I had made it. I have arrived. And it was a wonderful relationship because it was always a joy to get up in the morning to go to work there. And there I got a chance to even design more stuff, coming up with ideas of my own and so forth. And so I became still executing work, doing the final artwork, but I also got a chance to design stuff, whatever assignments, whether it was a packaging thing or an editorial thing, and I got to work on magazine designs and so forth and so on. So it was great. It was like a school and being paid for learning and working and so forth. Herb Lubalin died in 1980, 81, I believe. He was very young. So that was pretty much the end of the Lubalin studio. And I went on my own again. Since my forte was corporate identity and letterform design and typographics, I was getting enough work to do that. So I was independent, but I was still associated with the Lubalin partners, so we still worked together on projects and had my own independent clients. So, but the Lubalin years were golden for me, really a thorough joy. Well, recently, a colleague of mine, Bill Hilson, and I formed this company called Thin Stroke, and we're trying to revive the idea of ITC, designing exclusive typefaces. And I have enough typeface sketches over the years that I never had time to do. I mean, I designed the typeface that I showed at the presentation, Tony's Roman, Dispigna Roman, in 1969. And I have never released it. I have sketches that nobody's ever seen because I'm busy with school, teaching, and doing other stuff. And you only work on such typefaces when again, slow period, or I have time to work on it. So I'm trying to revive that idea of designing exclusive typefaces for corporate clients and designing new typefaces for the market, international market. So I'm the designer, and I'm working with an assistant to put them in Illustrator, and Bill Hilson, who's an expert with computer technology and printing and production, is going to be transferring it onto Photolab. We have some wonderful faces in progress, in the works, but it takes time because I don't want to release any typeface till I do at least 4 weights of Roman and 4 weights of italic as a complete family. And people think, well, it's only 26 characters. It's about 300-400 characters with foreign punctuations and all the rest that goes with designing a complete font. Well, I have a passion for the typography, but I don't love it to extreme. I mean, I love my wife to extreme. I use the term type tailoring because that's basically what I am. I mean, people think that type design is about setting type, choosing, making a choice. Well, that's just half of it. It is important to, whatever product or service you're working with, to choose an appropriate style for the service or product. But the more important style is, once you've made a choice, is what you do with that choice. You do something with it, design with it. Otherwise, it's just typesetting. And any secretary, even a client, can set type, on a keyboard or on a computer. So that's not where it's at. When I design typefaces, I mean, I'm not providing people with a design. I'm providing people with a style. I'm interested in seeing what they can do with that style. So I'm a type tailor because that's what I do. I take the words and whatever characters are in that word, I try to give it something unique. I tailor it, so that I can end up with a relationship between those characters and that word and that title. Especially when you're designing mastheads or corporate identity logo types. They're permanent. They're going to be around for years. So you want to make sure it's done and it's done right. And spend a lot of time on that, an unbelievable amount of time. People take a lot for granted for what the Lubalin studio did in typography. but they have no idea how much time is involved in putting that stuff together. It just looks like it was typeset that way. I remember one job in upper and lower case where Herb has set text type to the type house 4 times back and forth, and he was still not happy with the way it worked out. And he comes to my office and he lays it on my desk and he says, "Tony, fix this. I don't like what's happening here." And I spent 1 week, I kid you not, picking up with an X-Acto blade, cutting text type, including punctuations, fixing things, picking with a tweezer, slapping rubber cement on it, putting it down, and lining it up again, and so forth and so on. Text type. I spent 1 week on just a layout spread in upper and lower case of text. And I wanted to quit on her because I was going nuts. Because usually we work with headlines, but text. And but at the end of that week, the results were so unbelievably beautiful that it was worth it. In those days, when I worked on that spread, I wish we had a computer because it would have been done so much quicker and faster. But in any case, so nobody paid attention to typography, display typography and text the way Herb did, our studio did. Herb is still, to me, unbeatable. Even these young designers coming up today, they do fantastic stuff, but to me, Herb was the supreme master of letter form design. He knew his A to Z inside and out, and the combination of things, the stuff that he did. Look at his work. When I show the work to the students, I keep telling them this stuff was done long before you were born, and yet if they were being they look like as if they're being done today, and they'd be sent out to prospective exhibits and shows and contests, and they would still be winning awards the way it won then. So it's classic stuff as far as I'm concerned. This is why I started Thin Stroke, because in terms of what I call the category of technotypes, that is developing people who develop typefaces with computers, people who don't know their basic, they don't know their ascenders from their descenders, I keep saying, And I have never seen such a proliferation of bad typefaces coming out because of this computer influence, etc. Someone once said, when I made that comment, that, well, Tony, there's always been bad typefaces. Yes, that's true, but not so much proliferation of bad typefaces.
Is it because it's more readily accessible to make them?
It's because everybody that works on a keyboard thinks they can design a typeface. I saw one typeface, a mixture, what I call a Frankensteinian typeface, that is bits and pieces of different type styles just thrown together, and voila, it's a new typeface. And I'm amazed how the profession and trade publications pick up on this and say, wow, new typeface, they should know better. A lot of it is pure crap, and I don't know how the hell these people sell it. But there are young people who don't know better, get sucked in with, it's the new style, it's the new look, it's the new trend,
And what are your thoughts on
that? And I'm trying to revive the ITC concept of designing typeface with a permanence, not just for a fad. Plagiarism happens quite often. When I released Serif Gothic, ITC released my typeface. 3 months later, I pick up a type specimen book, and I see it in the book, and it's simply renamed Androcles. Exactly the same thing, no changes or nothing. They named it Androcles. And, legally, the legal position from a judge's point of view is that, did I invent the alphabet? No, I didn't invent the alphabet. But you try to explain that you designed that typeface, a look and so forth. But as far as the judge is concerned, I didn't invent the typeface, so, they can't tell the difference. That's why you see a lot of knockoffs. It's the same thing happens in the fashion industry, where you get a designer that does something beautiful and new, and you get a lot of knockoffs that steal the look and sell it to the general market. So plagiarism is something that we try to fight. As a matter of fact, ITC try to get people to sign up to try to pass a law in Congress about plagiarism, which is pure stealing. Influence is fine. I have no problem with people who are influenced by our work and so forth and so on. But outright stealing a design is, to me, it's criminal, frankly, because it's like stealing somebody's ideas and not getting paid a royalty for it or something. So, well, there's a difference between a handcrafted look and a computer look. Now, I mean, I have nothing against the computer. People think I hate the computer. Well, I do hate the computer because it doesn't give me what I want, or maybe it's good because it's my ignorance with the programs and so forth and so on. But it's like if you take a Saul Steinberg drawing of a line, or Seymour Quast, or R.O. Blackman. These are people that do fantastic illustrations. I mean, Saul Steinberg can take a question mark and turn it into Hamlet. And the character of the line, the signature character of the line, there's charm and beauty in that line, in that drawing. And you cannot capture that on a computer. A computer is really a mechanical thing. There's a coldness about it. It's just an appreciable difference that students are not sensitive to, and even professionals are not sensitive to. So, I mean, if you want a mechanical look, fine, the computer is great. Or if you're in architecture, you're drawing plans for a building, fantastic. But when you get something that has spirit and soul in a drawing or a piece of lettering or typography, and you wanted a beautifully tailored, handcrafted look, or a design that expresses spirit and soul in, which is something very difficult to do with type and letter form. Frankly, I don't care how you do it. I keep telling my students, if you use your hands or your feet or your penis or your moonbeam, it doesn't matter as long as the final result has that look about it that's excites me. My first book is called Love Letters, which is all the Spencerians that I've done over the years, 40 years of professional work, and they're simply going to be Spencerian samples, entirely Spencerian. My second book is going to be called Typographics, with the girl. And it's going to be about typographic applications primarily. My third book is going to be about general graphic design as well as my personal work, and about, I would say, 60% of it is going to be all my rejects and works that I did that I would assign myself an assignment. And when I see something terribly done, I would ask myself, what would I have done with that? And I would show and did solutions that I felt very good about that nobody's ever seen. So they're kind of solutions waiting for a problem. So 60% of my third book, called Graphics, is going to be rejects and work that nobody's ever seen before. Mm. And I have other books in the projects. I talked to you about designing names and tattoos to be placed on women's bodies, and maybe I'll do a second book on men's bodies, provided I get 100 volunteers who would be willing to put their name on their body and walk around with my artwork for the rest of their lives. I find that intriguing. And I'm going to be calling it Live Letters, or perhaps Naked Letters, And again, these are book ideas that I have in the works. Another great book idea that I recently spoke to Alan Pekulik about, my ex-partner at Lubalan Associates, is to do a book of Lubalan rejects that the world has never seen, and maybe do a follow-up book on putting out a call for entries to get the best studios and the best designers in the country, and maybe even around the world, to send in their best work that was rejected by clients, and do a book of rejects on that. Studios like Shemaev and Geismar and Pushpin and Pentagram, etc. To send in their rejected work and do a book of rejects, which I think is going to be more educational for students and professionals. So that's another book idea I have that intrigues me, that I don't know if I will ever get to. I admire Igarashi in Japan, who does three-dimensional design. He does sculpture with typography that's incredible. I admire people like Rick Valicenti and Neville Brody and all the greats that you see in the annuals and so forth. I appreciate people who have a passion for what they do, even amateurs. He's an amateur. He's not a professional, but he's got a passion and a love for what he does, and you have to appreciate that.
How about other qualities when you were to hire an assistant or as a designer? What do you look for in them? What kind of qualities?
She has to be beautiful, because I have to work with this person and look at her all day long. No, she has to have talent. And when I look at portfolios, when I was hiring at the Llewellyn studio, I was looking for something that I hadn't seen before, something that really was well thought out and beautifully designed and executed. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who I can rely on, and I know if I give them a job to do, that they do it well. So I'm not looking for a 9-to-5 functional person. So I look for what I call head and hands, ideas and the ability to execute those ideas. And how they execute it is really immaterial. If they use a computer to get the results I want, fine. But when they don't give me, I drive my assistants crazy. They drive me crazy because they can't give me what I want, So, but people who really, like me, at the beginning, people who are willing to work hard at what they do. Because to me, most successful, 99.9% of the people who are successful are hard workers. Herbal Ballin was like a workaholic. Seymour Quast was a double workaholic, But that's why they produce such great work. There's a lot of involvement and time involved behind the work that people take for granted. It always looks easy after it's done, but they have no idea of how much effort goes into developing an identity or a logo or a symbol or a layout or anything.